Hello, this is CUDA Open Lab Seminar on December 15, 2025. And today is our greatest pleasure to be, actually my greatest pleasure to be in a different environment, which is the Creative and Cultural Industries Business Research Lab at the University of Amsterdam. And today we will have a lab encounter with Monika Kackovic et al. And et al. Is Shuai talking about retrieval-augmented generation for visual art understanding, Teresa Liberatore, creative endurance in the fashion industry, Sumeet, Malik talking about Descendants, navigating innovation and tradition in Bollywood, and Thanos, Efthymiou being ranked in the material world. And so basically, it's the same business as usual. There will be talks, and we sort of agreed that to do all the talks at the beginning and take questions and discussion at the end, because in these lab encounters, typically, if you sort of start a discussion with the first or the second talk, then it's sort of like there's little time for the people at the end. So basically, we do talks first and discussion later. But first, we're going to learn a little bit about the CAX lab from Monika.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Max. Well, we're super excited to host you here at the University of Amsterdam. And we're really excited to have this lab meets lab kind of encounter. It's the first time that the CIX lab has ever done anything like that. And it was a great idea that you came with, so thank you. I'm happy to present a bit about the lab. I don't want to take up too much of the time because we have some really interesting speakers who are doing really wonderful work, 3 PhDs, and an assistant professor who Max already mentioned will talk about their work. Just briefly about me, I'm an associate professor here at the business school, and my research basically focuses on the creative industries, and I'm very interested in predicting performance, and performance can be defined across multiple dimensions, so financial performance, but also legitimacy or status or reputation on the individual level or on the organizational level. And within that capacity, there are other colleagues here at the University of Amsterdam who are also very active in the creative industry. So a couple of years ago, we got together and we decided to start a lab which we've been working on, let's say, I don't know, about the last 2 to 3 years. This image, or this moving image that I have up here, is of our website. And within that website, oops.
I think you too.
Yeah, there we go. Within that website, if you scroll down a little, we've got our work kind of outlined here. And again, it's very much about the creative industries, looking at it from different perspectives. We use different methods also, predominantly quantitative methods, so some econometrics, often combined with computational social approaches and other kinds of computational approaches, like machine learning, computer vision, text analysis. Yeah, and let me just go over here. I'd like to show you the people. Let's see if I can get to that. Yeah, so these are people who are within our lab. Many of them are here today, so I'm very excited about that. So yeah, I hope that if you have the opportunity, you'll come and take a look at at our website and at some of our work. And if you're interested in the papers or in any of the projects that we've got going on or that will be starting in the very near future, feel free to reach out to me or to any of the lab members. We'd be more than happy to continue the discussion. So thank you, Max.
Thank you very much. I should mention that everybody's like upbeat here because more funding came in just 5 minutes ago, which is great. And so there's funding for cultural analytics. So I think we should start with Shuai and Shuai will share his own screen. So basically, Exactly. Shuai, just share your screen, turn on your mic, and the stage is yours.
Sounds good. Let me share my screen. Oh, it's been a while since I used Zoom. Can you see my screen, by the way?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Yes, presenting mode. Nice. Can you hear me as well? I guess so.
Yes. We
Perfect.
can hear
Cool.
you.
Yeah, so I'm Shuai Wang. I'm very happy to present our recent work, ArtRAG, Retrieval-Augmented Generation with Structured Context for visual art understanding. So yeah, and before the presentation, I would like to give a brief introduce to myself, and also I'm happy to take any questions if you have during the presentation. We can also discuss that later. So I'm a PhD candidate at University of Amsterdam Business School, and my research focus is multimodal learning and business analytics. What I work on my research is I work on generative intelligence agent with vision language model and large language models recently. And I also work on multimodal knowledge modeling across different modalities, for example, text, image, and also what we are interested in this session, cultural artifacts. So I like applied AI research work. So I have some experience in the industry as well as a PhD student in the business school. So and I did the geographically aware personalization model for the hotel recommendation earlier this year in the Booking.com, and now I'm in the Amazon UK in London, working on the cultural adaptive LM conversational agents. So yeah, I just put them here to show like there are some applications from the cultural industry into the real like business settings, and especially together with the computational method and application. Cool. Then I will start with my real presentation. So the understanding or the problem we are trying to work on here is visual art understanding. So the big picture is that uh, we all know visual art is very rich in the meaning itself, but often it is inaccessible to broader audience. So take myself as example when I'm in one of the visual art museums, for example, in Amsterdam or in London, there are so many paintings from last 2,000 years, but it is always hard to understand what's really happening there. And because for the visual art, what's meaning there is not only about objects we can see in the painting, but also about many contexts. So there are some AI models has been working on this in the academic settings, and they can do image captioning, but they not normally focus on the surface level descriptions, and which means they will miss some deeper symbolism and context in it. So what it will cause is this will limit how people will engage with art, especially, for example, in the digital or the educational setting. So the goal of this project is, or it could be a starting point. We would like to develop a system that can explain the visual art. So we want the model to not only explain what we can see from the painting directly, but we also want the model to tell us like what it really means together with all the context and background happened around the creation of the painting. Then in the technical part, we want to bridge the gap between the visual content in the painting and also with together with the cultural historical context. And we wish to use this together to represent them in the structural knowledge way, which should be the ideal way to representing all this dispersed knowledge in all the context setting. And we also want to leverage the ability of the generative AI for this task. So yeah, some potential benefits and more applications for this could be like we can imagine for the art learners, they will gain richer understanding through the context, through all this context. And museums, educators will also can leverage this to create more engaging, personalized visitor experience. There might be also be some commercial usage. Yeah, here I put example here. So the ambassadors, the painting by Hans Holbein the Younger, around like 500 years ago. So if you ask me to explain this painting without knowing much about it, and now I know more about it, uh, like me or the general image composition model will say this is a double portrait of two wealthy men surrounded by the objects representing. Let me enable the laser point. That might make it better. Oop. Yes. Can you see my laser point, by the way?
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah, like if it's an image caption model, it will say it's a double portrait of two wealthy men surrounded by some objects in the middle. This object seems like representing some science, art, and exploration. However, if you really want to dive a bit deeper on this painting, there are much more interpretations on that. So all the objects there, I will go a bit rough. So there's a whole book explaining this painting, but I will just put some uh, some parts of the interpretations. So all the objects in the middle, so for example, the global, the measurements, and even some music instruments and books, they represent some scientific and symbolic mastery, because this painting was done in a special period of the Renaissance. And there's also a skull here you can see is distorter. It actually means the inevitability of death. The two wealthy men, or the double portrait here, it also means some tensions between the religions, so between the Protestantism and the Catholicism. So there are just three of them, but you can tell for a painting, especially the painting who was created in a certain time period, like what it means can be much more richer than what it should be like there. Yeah, I had a chance to really see that painting during my yeah, my internship here in London. So it's in the National Museum of a national gallery in London. So I was there last month. It was pretty fun. There were a lot of people trying to like standing there, yeah, try to interpret the painting, but it was a fun experience. Uh, so yeah, so what we want to do here is as we said, in order to have a good understanding of the painting, we need to bridge this visual content together with some background knowledge or context to enable a deeper and more contextual understanding of the artwork. And then in this case, the multimodal or multimodal approach is helping to interpret both what we can see and what it really means. So this is actually the motivation for our work. Uh, yes. So yeah. So here is the same example with the painting we saw already, and with its given attribute. So our method is to take both the painting and its available attributes together as the input. The attributes, it depends on like what we have in realistic setting. Many attributes could be missing. For example, some paintings we may not really know who the author is, or like when the painting was created, or like the time frame will be a bit blurred. But taking this available information as an input, we wish our model to output not only easy image captioning, but we want it to output the different potential interpretations covering different perspective. And we wish to take both the visual part of the painting and also some ground knowledge we will have or we can find to enable this system. There are some existing work on this area, which how to dive a bit deeper on the visual art understanding. So most of the work focus on fine-tuning on the existing vision language models by giving a bit more information about paintings. However, there's a limitation that this method depends heavily on the internal knowledge of the vision language model, which sometimes is not efficient. It depends what's the pertinent knowledge of the model, or like yeah, like during pre-training, how much will the model remember, or like it will often make mistakes. So in many cases, it will output like inaccurate pending explanations when we want to ask some more nuanced or like complex question about art. So, and here, that's why we want to bring the structured factual knowledge here. So we wish with the given external knowledge we can find, we want to build a structured knowledge base for this to offer a good knowledge base for the art understanding. Yeah, from here I will go to more details on the methodology part. Yeah, but if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the middle.
Fine, keep going.
Cool. Yeah. So here is a quick introduction or like a very simple explanation on one of the core technique we are using here in this paper called retrieval-augmented generation, which means given input or given question to the model or LM here or language model. We not only use the internal knowledge of the language model, but we also want to leverage the external knowledge base, especially some domain knowledge which is relevant to the area of application. So together with the retrieve documents from the knowledge base, together with the ability of the LM itself, will give the response. So yeah, some advantage of this method is in this way, we not only rely on the internal knowledge of the LM by itself, but we also grounding on some relevant, accurate knowledge we can predefine or we can refine by ourselves. So it will first retrieve some relevant documents or knowledge and then give to the final answer. So it will improve the question answering quality for domain-specific questions, especially, and it also allow us for have some continuous knowledge updating. So for example, if we have better knowledge or like other knowledge source which we think is reliable or good quality, we can always update this document store or knowledge base to enable for further application. So here, what we are doing, like as we said, is two parts. So first is data part. We want to construct art context knowledge graph, enabling the dynamic retrieval of a different perspective we care. For example, historical context, cultural context, some religious background. And we want to build a knowledge base for this for visual art understanding. And the second part is we also develop a model for enable this technique to domain adapt to the visual art area. Yes, here is the framework of ArtRAG. I will not go into too much details on that, but high levelly, we will have like three components here, corresponding to the core parts of methodology we discussed. Here is a high-level results, and in the later I have slides to go a bit deeper in each of them. But the first one is about like building the knowledge graph base. So what happens in this stage is we scrapped information from Wikipedia. So depends on different knowledge we are interested in. We scrap information and we extract the entities. The entities we care here are like, for example, artist, theme, culture and history, style and techniques, movement and school. And in the end, we want to get a knowledge graph, which each node and each adds both have the name and also a more detailed explanations on what it's really about. So here we have an example. For example, given the Wikipedia page of, I believe this is Dutch art. So with all this text, the current knowledge graph we build are all the text base. Yeah, but we actually have some ideas how to move this to multimodal as well. But for example, the knowledge graph we will have from this page, here a small snapshot is, for example, we will have the node of Dutch golden age painting, and the type is event. And we also have the description, for example, Dutch golden painting refers to a period of remarkable artist achievement in the Netherlands from a certain period, and is characteristic by a high output of paintings and different styles. So we have the name, type, descriptions on all the entities, not only about the node, but also about the edge. For example, here there's a relations between the Dutch golden age painting and Dutch masters, and there will be the descriptions here as well. So more details are in the paper on how we construct it, but here you can have some statistics about like the knowledge graph we built. So we take the information source of about like more than 1,000 Wikipedia pages from different document type, and in the end, we have a knowledge graph with more than 50,000 nodes and 60,000 edges. So here is a visualization. You can see some parts of nodes has higher degrees, which means more nodes are connecting to it, and some other nodes are more kind of a bit far from the center, which means they may not have too many other nodes connecting with them. So here, the next step is how we can build a model to get relevant information given the certain painting we want from the knowledge database. So it's given painting, like I said, with the available basic metadata. For example, here we have the title, author, type, and time frame, and about the painting itself. We ask the system, please explain the painting with multimodal input with both the text and paintings. Then here we try to develop a retrieval method, can retrieve the relevant information from the our R context knowledge graph database. So it's two-step, and yeah, yeah, there are more details in paper, but high levelly, the first step is like core screen search. We've used the text embedding to do the similarity search to retrieve the relevant documents. And the second part, we consider about more criteria, for example, the semantic information of also the visual painting itself, and also we think about the topology, about like some nodes which has higher degrees, which means it's more central in the knowledge graph. This might be more important. So we take some more information in the end and get a subgraph about context. So after we get the context subgraph, we input this. That's the next slide. Yeah, we will input this together with the question input into the vision language model to give the final output. So here we shows some results on two benchmark. One is called ArtPedia, another is called SemiArt. They are the two public benchmark which benchmark the visual understanding ability. They are all based on the human annotations, and the human annotators annotate data or annotate the painting simulations into different perspective. So you can say like our model ArtRAG with two different vision language models, they can output the purest heavily fine-tuned model in a setting that we do not need any fine-tuning or any training from our side. And here is application study, which shows how each step, for example, beginning from no actual knowledge, plus the extra knowledge but not structured way, and plus the structured knowledge, and also the multi-granularity retriever we designed, how this can build each step by step to improve the performance. Here are some qualitative examples. For example, here, given this certain painting with its attributes, we show what the knowledge graph will be retrieved from here. For example, the knowledge graph here will be relevant, or will have the nodes of Vincent van Gogh. We have the certain theme of nodes. For example, here is working class life, or a field of width, and also different other artists. All this grounding information will help to give the final painting explanations. Here we also shows some qualitative comparisons between our model, ArtRAG, and together with other two baseline, GPT-4o, and also a previous baseline Keller model. The green part is the accurate context information. Like I can tell, our model can output the explanations with more perspective and more contextual information, really both accurate and also relevant to the painting. Yeah, our model is also able to do more kind of questions related to painting. So not only about can you explain the painting from me, but you can also ask what theme or beliefs are reflected in this painting, and together with the same input and different questions about different parts of painting, like our system can give the corresponding answer. Yeah, here are some examples. Yeah, here's a small human evaluation. Also shows from the human annotators, who works on the cultural industry in general, how they appreciate like our explanations together with other two baselines. So our models has much higher chance to get the first rank compared with other two. Okay, so, yeah, there are some more applications could be used for this system. We are also working on ourselves how to expand this work to more complex questions, or like augmented our knowledge base into a truly multimodal information knowledge base. Yeah. So some key takeaways I would say from this project is art need contextual understanding, and ArtRAG is one of the solutions that can combine computer vision, knowledge graph, LM for this deep exploration. And yeah, what we can get from there is the richer interpretations with real-world applications. Yeah, here is a paper. So it's published in this year's ACM Multimedia Conference. Feel free to check online. And yeah, it's a work in University of Amsterdam together with my supervisor, Stefan, Monika, Nahum, Marcel, and also two colleagues in Science Park. Yeah, thanks for listening and your attention. So if you have any ideas or want to discuss further, feel free to approach with us. Yeah, if you have any questions or suggestions, I'm also very happy to take. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I now have to say, for those who have the picture too small, that we all clapped because it actually cuts out the clapping.
Thanks.
I see more clapping online. Okay. So yeah, thank you very much. Obviously, we would like to ask questions, but let's continue with the next talk, and discuss at the end, which is Teresa Liberatore, talking about creative endurance in the fashion industry. And I think you have to share the slides.
I do.
And for all speakers, you can also share if you're in the Zoom meeting, you could.
Maybe it's easier, so then I can change the...
Yeah, but I also have this,
okay, sure.
but it's up to you.
Oh, you can use the mouse. It's also fine.
Yeah, it's up to you.
But are you?
It's a meeting.
Okay, then please
By the
share.
way, I have another meeting soon before 3 or 4 Amsterdam time, so I might leave earlier. But if you have any questions, feel free just send us an email or.
Okay, so then let's take one question. I think we have time. Any questions online? Any questions in the room? I can ask a question. So iconology is a very, very, very deep hole. As Sundar would say, space is deep. There is no end to it. So the question is, where does this end? Like, if you take the Holbein painting, for example, you see the guitar or the lute, and you think Albrecht Dürer's perspective. You see two rich persons. A textile historian could probably say way more than in Wikipedia. Somebody who's snarky could say, oh, we're living in the end times because there is a opusectile floor where larger pieces of marble from Roman antiquity were cut into smaller pieces of marble. Nice pattern, but we're small pieces of marble. So there's probably as many interpretations as there are art historians. So in some sense, where do you think is sort of like the limit of this? Like you're performing against algorithms, but performing against sort of the ensemble of all knowledge that has been said about this work, or could be said about this work, which is ever larger classes of things. Where are we? Are we at 1%, at 10%, at 50%? So what would be your guess?
Yeah, thanks. I think that's a good question. So for me personally, like what I appreciate to get from this kind of system is more about like inspiration. So like now like language output, I would say it's cheap. Like especially with LLM, they can output like as much text as you want, like endlessly. So in one of our evaluation, actually, one criteria is we constrain the lines of the output. So for example, constrain the paintings. I remember, I think it's about like 70 words. So we constrain the output, and we want to say, given this certain constraint of lines of output, how much valuable information are there, or it is possible like some system may just output some random kind of knowledge, but this may not be the one we want or we will get inspiration from. So yeah, I would say it's this part is similar to LM. So like one part we want to get some relevant and accurate information. The other part is we want this information density is also high enough for the user to appreciate. So I would say, yeah, one side we want to make sure the output is as relevant as possible. If the user wants more information, of course, he can ask follow-up question. So for example, if the user asks with the beginning question of, can you explain me about this painting? And the system gives some output, then the user can always ask a follow-up question if he wants to know more about certain part of the painting. So yeah, I would say like this is one like a practical setting, and I do work on my spare time at Amazon here to how to like push this a bit further to make the model to accept more different kind of questions and still try to give the accurate answer. But yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Nice. For the art historians, from an art historian, if people get suspicious about things like that, once you're ending with your encyclopedia information, that's the information you've learned while you're giving a tour in front of the painting, your system would do the same thing the art historian would do, bullshitting about other things they know about other things in front of the painting, right?
Yeah, like the knowledge base in our case for sure is a like important part. That's why in the first part of our methodology we do have multiple steps. Like there will be more details prepared to make sure the knowledge graph we build from there is an accurate one. Both has the semantic information relevant, but also should have some other relations, some hidden relations, but that the purely Wikipedia may not have. So like that's actually one part we try to make sure that that's also the motivation we try to build a knowledge graph there is that of just a purely big chunk of that text. Yeah, but yeah, that part is something interesting to work further for sure.
Thank you very much. This was great. I could ask more questions, but I think we should go on. Thank you very much, Shuai.
Yeah, thank you.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Can you share the slides?
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay. Well, so I am Teresa in the meantime.
Oh, you want me to do it?
Oh, I can also do it. I will
No,
try
no,
this.
no.
It's
I
fine.
can definitely do it. No.
I
I think it's all the way down here. Here. No. Did you send it to CW?
yes. Let me just
It's on the
I
desktop.
can just share my screen. I joined the Zoom meeting, so I guess that's easier.
You know where to find it? It's our website.
Mm.
put them together. So then
It's the one with the, no,
Which one is it?
the file explorer on the lower left.
This one?
No, further down.
Down?
Yeah, this one.
Oh, here.
Yeah, you should stop share. And then it's the, oh no, there's, your slides are not there, right?
Did you send them to Sidonie?
Yeah, I sent. She told me that she uploaded, but I can also just, I guess, share.
It's fine. Wait until you. Just unshare.
this one is all the compilation.
Yeah, I think I'll try that one.
Yes. Go at the end.
She should be second. Okay.
Can you unshare, Monika?
Yeah, sure. Maybe it is here. No. It's not in the compilations.
Okay. You join?
Yes. Yes. It is there. Perfect.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Well, so
What's the chat so that's gonna?
It's small.
Yeah.
I think you can also
Yeah.
maybe do the in the
This
view. No, in the view.
Yeah,
view. The view.
You?
View up there. Click, and then do the one with the one little tiny thing.
This
Yes. Okay, that's better. Okay. Yes. Okay, Teresa is here.
hello.
It is yours.
Hello everyone, and yeah, so I'm Teresa and I'm a PhD student here at the University of Amsterdam. And I want to start this presentation by showing you those two paintings, and I will give you like 5 seconds to think who the artist might be and how easy it is for you to recognize who the artist is. Probably the art historian here will have an easier time than the other ones, but okay, I don't want to make it long, so spoiler, they're both made by Van Gogh in the same year. And if you would have more time to think about it, or at least for me, it's way easier to recognize that the painting of the sunflower was made by Van Gogh than the other painting. And so that's just to get you a bit inside the idea of how recognizable is the style of certain producer. And let's change context and let's go into fashion. And this is actually a screenshot from Runaway Genius, which is this kind of like game that Vogue has made where you can try to guess the designer. And considering the previous example that I gave you, you might, the options are very tiny, but there is also the same option in the two designs. So you must say, okay, probably the same designer also here, and where you would be both right and wrong at the same time, because those designs were both produced by the fashion house Valentino, but they were created in 2 different times, so by 2 different creative directors. And that's a good example to get us even more in the topic, because in many creative industry organizations, you don't have just the producer that directly produced the artifact, but you indeed have an organization that produces the things under the direction of a person with a creative vision. And so there are those 2 things to keep in mind. And so that's kind of like the introduction to the work I'm doing right now together with my supervisor, which is about style recognizability in the high fashion industry. And why is style recognizability important? One might say there are many reasons, but here I'm just going to give you this. And this is from like a paper that goes and explore what are the main constructs that make a fashion brand luxury. And as we can see, it's in the 2 of the diagrams, we can see that the design signature and having a recognizable style as being identified as a very important thing. And that's from literature. And then I also want to give like a context from more like the industry. This is a screenshot from the business of fashion. I realize it's very tiny, but it's also very recent. So that's why I also want to bring it here. And it's this interview between those 2 fashion experts. And basically what they come up with in their conversation is that in order to rebuild trust with customer, luxury brands should work and try to get aligned more with their brand DNA, which is basically talking about their style and getting more close to their style. And it's an important thing in the fashion industry. But what is style? So there are plenty of possible definitions. So here I just report 3, and I try to highlight the common concepts highlighting those definitions, which is this idea of durability, being distinctive and having similar and the same forms in different artifacts, and being recognizable. And from this idea of being recognizable, that's where we arrive to our operationalization of style. So that really, if you talk about recognizing patterns, that's given my background, that's the first thing I think about is having a model that learns from pattern to recognize classes. And so in this context, we decided to kind of like use the same approach, but with a different scope. So no, we're not so interested in seeing, I mean, we're also interested, but we want to, rather than having a model that is good at recognizing who made what, we want to use this performance as a proxy of indeed how strong is the style in this specific artifact. And then we can do it for a producer. So we'll do it both at the fashion house and the fashion designer level. And for that, we can also do it at every year. So how did we do it? We first created a database. So we collected data from many different sources, and we stored it in a Wikibase and on Hugging Face. And if you're interested in that, the data is there anyway. How did we do it then? So we had the images, and then we removed the background from images, and then we used Fashion Clip, which is a big pre-trained model, which is basically a fine-tuned version of Clip. And Clip is a model where the text and images that represent the same concept are close together in the embedding space. So that's very good for us. And in this fine-tuned version of Clip on fashion is good because it means that in this vector representation, in these embeddings, there is also some kind of like knowledge about fashion already. And then on top of that, what we did is that we trained many different very tiny models with an expanded window approach, so that we train on the past and test on the relatively future year every time. And the performance on the test set was we take as the metrics of style recognizability for that producer in the given year. And we also do it using negative hard samples. So that means that we, if we are trying to get the style recognizability metric for a certain designer, we then will take the designs made in the same year from different producers, but which are as similar as possible to the positive example. And that gives us so they kind of solves in our scenario our idea of how that we can get some kind of measure for style recognizability. But then if you remember at the beginning, we were talking about fashion, indeed specifically, and then in fashion you have 2 layers of production. So you have the fashion house and then you have the creative director. And this is the extract from another conversation between Alessandro Michele, who was the creative director at Gucci for many years, who recently transitioned to Valentino. And there was a lot of conversation in the fashion industry that his new collection Valentino looked a lot like what he did at Gucci. And then basically what Michele says in this interview is well, actually, maybe that's just me. So maybe the idea that what you think about Gucci right now is not, it's Gucci, but my interpretation of Gucci. And we thought that this brings a very interesting tension between the style of the individual creative leader and the style of the organization, and what happens when those 2 mixes. So that brought us to have some research question and hypothesis on the style recognizability of the organizations. So at one level, we want to see if creative directors who are also the founder, if that has an impact on how recognizable is the style of the organization in a specific year, and if the prestige of the creative leader has an impact, and if having 2 leaders also has an impact. And then specifically, this is actually our probably more interesting part of research question and hypothesis is that we ask what happens when there is a change in creative leadership to the style recognizability of the organization. So we hypothesize that there is usually that there would be a decrease in style recognizability when there is a change in creative leadership. And in particular, we also think that this decrease will be stronger when the creative leader is more prestigious or where the organization is more prestigious. And in this case, we operationalize prestige as like how many awards the creative director had up until a certain year. And if the fashion house is is a couturier fashion house, which is the highest level of prestige that a fashion house can have. And so we tested this. So we have our, this is maybe a bit tiny, but so we had our style recognizability metric that then we fit in a fixed effect panel regression. Then we control for the longevity of the fashion house and for the size, which is we took as a proxy of how many designs the fashion house produces every year. And what we see is that, well, in the first place, that indeed creative director prestige positively affects the organizational style recognizability, and also that creative director who are also founders of the organization that also has a positively effect on style recognizability, and because and that's aligned with our idea that indeed the individual and organizational style then they are kind of closer because the founder is the creative director. And then we also saw, as we hypothesized, that leadership changes tend to produce to a temporary drop in style recognizability. And going a bit more in detail in that, we looked at the interaction indeed between the prestige of the fashion house and of the creative director on the when there is a creative director change, and this effect on the organizational style. And we can see that indeed the biggest drop in organizational style recognizability happens when both fashion house and designer are on the higher level of prestige. And we also did the same, looking at the individual style recognizability. So basically, we consider creative directors who transitioned across at least 2 fashion houses in our sample. And then we fit, then also there we predicted how recognizable their style is over time. And then we also see here that creative directors who are also founder of fashion houses, that has a positive impact on the style recognizability of the individual. And we see that when there is a transition, so when a creative director or a designer goes from a fashion house to another one, and it has won awards, so it has a higher prestige, that actually have a positive effect on his individual style recognizability. And that can be interpreted by the fact that those designers then, since they're being recognized, they're more able to carry over this style in the new organization. But when instead is the fashion house, which is more prestigious, then that doesn't happen. So in those cases, the designer then will adapt to the style of the organization. So to sum up, can we measure style recognizability? Well, I don't know. We think that we can, and we by using classification performance as a proxy for that. And the idea is that the stronger the performance, the stronger the style signal actually is present in the artifact. And then the second question is like, do changes in creative leadership entail changes in organizational style? And in general level, the answer is yes, but that depends on the prestige of the organization and of the leader. And then, as we saw before, when a creative leader has high prestige, the leader is then more likely to carry over his or her style in the new fashion house. So to go back to Alessandro Michele and the example when he went to Gucci from Valentino, it falls in the case of being a high prestigious designer and going in a prestigious fashion house, meaning that it is actually expected that there would be a drop in organizational style recognizability when he joined the new fashion house. And well, that was it. I hope I didn't speak too fast. And thank you for your time. And if you have any questions or any comments, yes, please, I don't know, now, later, by email, whatever. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. there is a kind of you said it's 2020 to 2023, or did you do this for a longer time?
The time frame is well, we have like 32 years.
Okay.
So from 1990, I don't know, like 85 or something, up until 2025.
Do you see, like one could say Gucci was more canonic Gucci in the 1980s than it is now, right? Do you see that effect too, that there is a sort of like the question is like, you do the star table regressions, which assumes there's a sort of mouse median and there's some spread around some Gaussian around some line.
Yeah.
But is that really the case? That's a big question, isn't it?
And how the star recognizability changes.
Yeah, what is the
time?
underlying structure? So is it like it's like if you have your regression is like the river in the river valley, but there's a lot of difference you can have in the mountain slopes, right? So the question is that like what you find out here, which is great, probably already published, is that sort of the full big picture? Or like what would happen if you look at the actual data? Like if instead of like giving us these numbers with some significance, you actually give us the scatter plots where you can see what line are you fitting around what dots. Does it make sense?
Yeah,
it's a little bit heretic to us as in a business school. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, the scatter plot that you're asking for is already here in that model. It's inherent in that model. Right?
Exactly. So I hate to bring this guy up, but as Nathan Taleb would say for IQ, if you look at the dots, the inherent, yes, but like you can put a line anywhere, but like the question is like, how does it look like? And my personal question here is, does it look different in the 80s and 90s than it looks in 2020s? And the answer is probably yes, right?
Yes.
Simply by walking down Via Gondoli and looking at the cooking.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that is sort of something where I think there could be a sort of next paper maybe, which you could sort of like, how should I say? The question is, you need to probably then speak to an audience that doesn't speak star tables, which is in an economics journal, they want to have these tables.
Yeah.
Well, if you go to multidisciplinary science, where people like to look at, the complexity of the plot, and fashion being a complex thing, the convolutions of like what happens there, sort of like the Lady Gaga is Gucci story in plot form.
Yeah,
will be a really interesting thing to see.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it would be like indeed, like that's probably not what the place where we will submit this paper would like to, but I think indeed you can see actually also today when you were talking about the compression idea, it would also be interesting also to do the same like in the fashion domain and or like looking at this kind of like the authorship attribution, but it's kind of like you can do this same. Then of course you have there are very different domains because in history of art, as we mentioned before, you really have producer to artwork, and then you have like literally the paper and the color that are used that are very different time by time. While here also the period that you observe is much shorter than the whole art of history. And then there are a lot of like more trends that you can observe. So actually fashion houses doing very similar thing, but indeed it would be very interesting to see actually like more of the colors and
I have a question.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Great presentation, and I enjoy your passion and involvement in the topic, and can clearly see it's something you find very interesting. I have a question to what theoretical debates you contribute. What would be theories you would use, or even which field? I don't know, organizational theories and like, creativity and, the whole personnel question, or what is the angle?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question, actually.
Because this is a data story more or less currently, right?
Yes. Yeah, we really didn't go much into the theory part in this presentation because of the kind of like audience that we were expecting today. But on a general level for that, we are still kind of discussing, but how I want to sell it is talking about style recognizability as like in the framework of like you can either be conform to your peers, you can be distinctive, or then you can be what if you can be something between where you're like conform to your inner self, and that helps you to like that's as a kind of third measure in like market positioning that it's something important for.
You say there are theories about that.
Yeah, I mean, we would like, there is theory of lot of works about conformity and distinctiveness, and then how that's then affected by status and so on. And then I think like the idea is that, I mean, my idea, that Nahum is still not so happy about it, is to have like style recognizability as another kind of like lens in which you can look into like how producers in space position themselves. So it's of course, you have to consider your peers, but then you also consider yourself and how true you are to your heritage, to your DNA, and so you're going to talk about brand identity and all this kind of stuff.
So really, just to add to that, this paper is more of an org theory kind of a paper, but I mean, you could flip it and make it into an entrepreneurship one also, because there's quite a rich amount of data about founders, fashion designers that are also founders, and what that means. So there's a large scope of potential of style papers.
When they leave, right?
Well,
they exit or they're
founders, where they maybe close their business, right?
The exit.
Or they pass away. So there's quite a few options, right? That but for this particular paper, we're really targeting more kind of organization theory. That dichotomy between conformity and differentiation, and what effect that has on performance.
Any questions from online? Mike? Okay.
Max, is this your lab online?
Yeah, there's parts of people are.
People in the room are not sure what the meeting is.
There is another question one could ask. I have a very close friend who is an art historian, but also he does PhD in Mantegna, but he's also a fashion photographer. And one of his major skills was he had this room full of like, decades of Vogue magazine and whatever. You could pull out a random journal, even him not in the room, and just walk out with a page, and he would tell that designer, that photographer. And the photographer part was the crazy stuff. He almost always was right on the photographer. So there is a lot of other things in these pictures, lighting, the photographer, to see if it's Paris or Düsseldorf or the picture was taken. So you talk about sort of like one of the most dominant things, one would surmise at least, while photographers all of a sudden, then you get thousands of people and not just 50 or 100, right?
Yeah.
So is that something that can be tackled with this method, or do you think that at that point there more data is needed or whatever?
You mean to also look at the photographer at the third layer? Yeah, actually it's something that I was thinking about as well, because you like from where we got the data from Vogue, it's also mentioned the photographer and also the model. But the photographer, it's more like repetitive. So I think it would also be interesting to try and to see, how much that can be.
But if this is like fashion show photography, then you would have the 10 photographers standing there having the same models and the same light, and depending on where they stand, you wouldn't see that originality in the photo, right?
I'm not a particular expert to be in this, but I think that it would be. I mean, I think that ideally, I think it would be very interesting to do this also in other domains in general, like also. Or like to, also a bit what we're talking about today with Monika, like this idea of having a style, how recognizable is the style of a producer? Also, you could look at, I don't know, also just a photographer, not in fashion, or like an architect and buildings and all this kind of, and then, because also, for instance, like photographer less, but in architecture as well, you have like studio of architects, where you have like the star architect, and then you have the style of the studio and the style of the architect.
Interesting. I think there's a discussion that we all should have about style, which is these, in computer science, there's overfitting as a problem. In art history, there's a German term for it, it's kunsthistorische Verbildung, which means over-education until you fall apart. Very hard to translate. But then there's other style definitions, which sort of like may not follow like your kind of thing. And then there's the weirdest one, which is the computer science style definition, where they talk about style transfer.
Oh, that's very much.
When they make everything Starry Night, which has totally nothing to do with impressionism and style, but it's just like actually Starry Nightification, how it should be called, right?
Yeah.
But so there's a sort of like I'm not sure. I'm not aware of a review paper that would sort of like answer this once and for all. From my side, what style as an alternative definition could be, and I wrote about that in coming out of databases, which is a period. So it's an extension in space and time that is associated with a bunch of objects that have this space and time domain somewhere there, which is quite interesting because talking about Ernst Gombrich, he would not endorse this because he didn't have a computer, right? And so he was critical about George Kubler, who had similar ideas than I had, while at the same time he says we need something like a machine that can do that, while he was against it. So there's a sort of like thing where I think we really need to overcome people who were already 60 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think we should go on to stay in time.
There is another colleague waiting in our Zoom room.
Oh,
This is another room that we have here.
So then please go to kudan.tlu.ee/event/.
You hear this, Yuri?
Kudan is CUDAN
Yeah.
.tlu.ee.
DE?
EE, like
EE.
Estonia. And now that everybody in the audience heard it, like if you see this video, check out that website because we got 70 publications with 103 co-authors done all of
So you can find this there.
Yes, and all the PDFs are there and all the video links are there. So you get 100 2-hour sessions or 110 actually. In the meantime, we set up the slides for Sumeet Malik, who will talk about Descendants navigating innovation and tradition in Bollywood.
yeah.
Nice check.
Stage is yours.
Thanks. Okay, this is, I should tell, this is a joint work with Chandrika, who's at Rotterdam, and Oliver, who's at TUM Munich. So the nepotism debates are everywhere now, especially whether it's businesses, whether it's politics or in popular media. Nepo babies is a term which is trending quite a lot. Yet these heirs have, they are heading a lot of, they are at important positions, they head a lot of businesses and are often key innovators and stewards. Some examples are Soros's son, Alexander, Murdoch's son, Lachlan has the reins now, but Lusconi's daughter, Arnold's daughter, and Ambani's son in India. Now, they're interesting to us because they have inherited status. They just by an accident of birth. So they have, high social capital, or what Baudu said, sort of cultural capital. But at the same time, there are skepticism and charges of nepotism that they didn't earn it. So they have to sort of, in order to earn their inherited status, there is a pressure to show through innovation that, yes, they have earned their status in the rightful way. And this sort of is a double-edged sword when they start to innovate. Now, consumers expect these descendants to preserve tradition, not disrupt it, because strong departures may be seen as they are betraying their heritage, or they are throwing away their privilege. At the same time, pure recycling of canon is uninspiring to them. So the right kind of innovation for descendants is not really obvious. Now, what we do here is we look at the atypicality, and atypicality is defined as a deviation from contextualized expectations of representativeness. And more recently, we've started looking at typicality in two ways. One is by combining elements from multiple established genres. So for an example would be a restaurant which is doing atypical dish by blending Italian and Japanese cuisines. The other would be violating the defining feature of the category. So that is inconsistency-based atypicality, where a restaurant is, serving a radically deconstructed dish. For instance, tortilla, Spanish tortilla, el bulli, where it's deconstructed and it's upside down and the potato isn't there. So we sort of look at these two forms of atypicality, and these can have very different receptions for descendants. Now, we will test this in Bollywood. Why this is an ideal setting is Bollywood is heavily dominated by descendants. There are these producers who've been active for multiple generations. They are the ones who are, it's a project-based industry. They are the ones who are sort of gathering all the creative and financial resources for these firms. And they have the social capital, they have, they have the trust-based networks. We look at movies from 2009 to 2020, just before, cinema halls were shut down for COVID. And 41% of the films in our sample were produced by descendants, meaning they were either second or third or fourth generation producers. Their forefathers were in the film industry business. Here are some of the quotes. Shami Kapoor, who used to be, is the son of Prithviraj Kapoor, who actually acted in the first talkies in Bollywood. They were a Pashtun family, which was undivided India close to Afghanistan. They didn't have any training in Hindi, which became the language of Bollywood. And he's talking about how his father sort of asked him to start learning Hindi from Amitabh Bachchan, who's another famous superstar, whose father used to be a Hindi poet. That it used to be more or less our syllabus. My father was very adamant about it. Hindi is very important. This is going to be the language of Bollywood. Then we have Pooja Bhatt, who is from the Bhatt dynasty. She was an actress, became a producer as well. She talks about this inhabited sort of cultural capital she got as growing up. I was always involved in every aspect of the film, not only coming onto the set and doing my bit and leaving. So while she was an actress, she was learning, tricks of the trade as well. So in other words, inherited cultural capital and competence is passed on to these descendants that outsiders might not see directly. Now, as I said, there are two distinctive parts to be atypical. In the Bollywood context, we look at how they are blending different categories or genres of action, romance, comedy, drama. There is a term called masala, which literally means blending of spices. That would be an ideal example of blending-based atypicality. And for inconsistency-based atypicality, we look at song and dance sequences. These song and dance sequences are very difficult to identify, classify by Western genre standards. So that would be like a musical in the Western, by Western standards, but almost every Bollywood movie has these song and dance sequences. So we look at the deviation of these, how how deviating are they from the primary category of the movie, whether they have less or more of these song and dance sequences. So we look at both their box office returns, and we I will show you some analysis of their critical reviews as well. We collect this database from different sources, all publicly available. We identify the primary producers and build their family trees. Basically, we look at how many generations and what's the breadth, how many family members were active in each generation in the film industry. If it was such as Amitabh Bachchan's father, who was a poet, we don't count it. But if it is Shami Kapoor's father, who was also an actor, we count it. We also have, I think, an interesting way to reach some level of causality, because we look at the male heir ratios of the first generation. So Shami Kapoor, in other words, was a son, and the argument is that if you have more sons, then you will have a bigger dynasty in the Bollywood film industry. This is not too far-fetched. In fact, Kapoor dynasty was well known not to let their women enter the film industry. Even the kids who married actresses, they were stopped from taking part in the film industry anymore. In fact, only in the fourth generation, their great granddaughter sort of rebelled, and she said, "No, to hell with your rules, I'm going to enter Bollywood." So it was very well enforced until the fourth generation. One or two reasons where our instrument would not work would be that what if India is known to be sort of female infanticide happens, or sex determination, but that is mostly in lower class, low socioeconomic statuses, and we are looking at these film producers where their pregnancies are probably very difficult to hide, and they are always in the public limelight. So the argument is, yes, they would be having more kids until they have the son. Yeah. Okay, so here are some results. Overall, we find that if you are a dynastic producer, the deeper your roots, the more family members you had on your dynastic tree, that will lead to better box office performance. But this is dependent on how you innovate. So if you are blending more, doing more masala sort of innovation, then the market rewards you with better evaluations. But if you are deviating from the core features of the category, defining category, then the market starts penalizing you. So yes, there is a baseline advantage, but the blending genres amplifies their success, and breaking conventions triggers a penalty. When we look at professional critics, actually these results flip completely. So the argument is that the critics sort of have a very different theory of value. They already know the privilege that these producers come from, and they actually reward convention-breaking work rather than blending of genres. Here is, for instance, a quote where they say you are a Dharma template. Dharma is, again, a producer, which is a dynastic producer, well-known dynastic producer. You borrow details from a bunch of romantic comedies. shake them up and you get a new movie. So they don't like this blending of genres. And well, one argument was also that, there is a nepotism discount going on, and this only is triggered when the audiences start reacting to they are throwing away their privilege by breaking traditions. But what if the event itself, their nepotism itself becomes salient? And we could find that in our sample where on February 12, 2017, there was a well-known actress who went on national TV and sort of started this debate with Dharma producer, saying you guys are nepotists, you have it all easy, so on and so forth. And it was in the media industry for a while. And we look at, after this event, all the movies by the dynastic producers actually get discounted significantly. So what are the implications of this analysis? Basically, what we are trying to do here is reframe the inheritors dilemma. We are integrating both the supply side and demand side accounts. Mostly what we know is from the supply side, they have these legacy resources such as social capital and some cultural capital that they can innovate through tradition. Demand side, there is less work, but there is some expectations that Descendants would be custodians of tradition, or they should at least be accepting of their entitled ascribed status. Our results imply that dynastic privilege is not an automatic escalator to success. It's contingent on how your audience receives your innovation. The other implication is that there is work on ascribed status. We sort of say that they sort of try to achieve this status by innovating, but blending allows their inherited status into a signal of cultural mastery, but the inconsistency amplifies their suspicion that actually they were entitled to this, and it triggers a nepotism discount. And there is also heterogeneity of audience reception. So critics' evaluations differ from the consumer evaluation. Therefore, the implications are that any theory of novelty evaluation should specify who the audience is, whether the status is inherited or earned, and what dimension of atypicality or novelty is at stake. And beyond Bollywood, I think what we sort of inform is to cultural entrepreneurs and family firms that innovation is not neutral. Its style shapes its legitimacy. And for debates on nepotism, we sort of say it's not simple for or against position. We sort of miss how audience sort good from bad uses of privilege. So thank you so much for your attention.
Yes, any questions?
So can you repeat for 1 second how you intend to measure the typicality and typicality?
So typicality is two ways. One way is how you're blending.
Yeah.
So blending is basically how many genres you are spanning, normalized it by the distance of these genres.
At the genre level then, only at the genre level.
Yeah, it's a feature space level, right? So it's at the genre level. How many genres you're mixing, dependent on how far these genres are. So yes, action and comedy, you're mixing two genres, but it will also count for how far are action and comedy as genres.
How many genres do you have? And
It will be from 2 to, I think, 18 or something.
in total, there's like 70 or something maximum, probably, right?
Sorry?
The number of genres in the system.
I think 18 or something.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
Is there something like drama that everybody has? Do you count for stuff like that?
So there will be a primary genre, and then they will add the genres to that.
Interesting. So there's two questions from the audience.
Because the blending base, inconsistency base.
Inconsistency based is a primary genre. How deviating you are from standard deviation of song and dance sequences from the primary genre.
The paper, the reference paper is the one in web.
Yes. This is so the
Maybe close that.
The paper I mentioned on atypicality by Feriani and Cottolio. They come up with these definitions.
You make this or
No, they make this.
they make this. Periani,
Cottolio and Feriani.
yeah, that's just one. But we are not with them in this paper, right?
Okay. Nico, Tom.
Okay, thank you so much. It was very interesting. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep. Basically, I've had several half questions, short half questions, half comments. Basically, one thing I Googled while you were talking, that there are actually 8 parent-children pairs among Nobel laureates, which sort of speaks to the idea. Probably it is mostly due to the high social capital, high, cultural capital due to being brought up in such a family. It's, for me at least, it's hard to believe that you have some sort of preference by the jury for this sort of people. Probably another thing which came to my mind is basically that there is a huge number of examples of similar nepotistic relations in politics, and actually the Indian, more generally the whole sort of South Asian subcontinent is famous for its political families. And the question I have related to that is, do you think there is sort of a geographical correlation between sort of it being widespread in cultural and in political world? And the third thing is does it change in time? Is this commonality of this sort of relationship decay with time, or they grow in time? Do you have any opinion about that?
Thanks, Mike. These are all great questions. So yes, in fact, there is work now which shows that even professions are becoming very dynastic. So kids of doctors are becoming doctors, and kids of lawyers are becoming lawyers, and professors are becoming professors. And the argument was a little bit of cultural capital, that this is sort of inhabited over time, and you gain this. And a lot of people, scientists openly acknowledge it, that from the very beginning, we've been sort of, we've understood the norms like very quickly than an outsider would. And this is the argument we sort of also make in the paper, that these are this is cultural capital which is passed down. So for an outsider, it might seem, oh, this comes naturally to them, but they have inhabited and learned it over time. About geographical correlation, I don't know about geographical correlation, but there is an argument to be made of institutions, right? So there is a lack of institutions in India, and or like institutional void. Literature would say that trust-based relationships where transactions have to be made, where the institutions are bad at enforcing some of these transactions, then trust-based relationships sort of take more, become more dominant. So what we understood was a lot of the payment to the crew members in Bollywood was made through cash, and almost 1/3 of the payment comes after the movie has released, right? So these fly-by-night producers will not be trusted by these crew members, while those who are dynastic producers, whose parents have been in the industry and whose kids will be in the industry, are more trustworthy.
Okay,
So there is that argument that sort of works. Given that there are accounts where nepotism goes on in Hollywood as well, and there is a debate that is going on that that they should be accepting more of this privilege the descendants are getting. Which brings me to your question on whether this changes in time, and I think this used to be quite a given thing in India, but now it's become more of a point of discussion and debate. So I think there is more discussion about what is merit versus what is what is inheritance.
Okay, thank you so much. Very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's move on to Mark. We have sort of 2 minutes for another question. Mark.
Hi. Yeah, it's all been very, very interesting research. So for the short question, I wanted to ask about the concept of the innovation that you divided this into these two kinds of innovation. Maybe I missed some part because the question was that it's really like this data-driven categorization of innovation in there, I guess, right? Because otherwise you could talk about more of a recontextualization and innovation as such, right? Because this seems to be like very content-driven, that I have this content and it's the genres, and do I mix the genres or do I break the genres? Can you comment a bit more on that, please?
So yes, I mean it is what we sort of invoke innovation is through atypicality, and there is more sort of acceptance, like what I cite. This is not my definition of atypicality, and these two sort of ways to look at atypicality is not my division. But in organizational theory, there is more of this conversation going on that we can look at cultural products through the feature space or through the label space. So we're sort of using these two ways to measure atypicality. One is more how they are sort of mixing of these genres, these labels, and second is more of how they are deviating from the features, core features.
Yeah, because it was like a metadata-driven study, right?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you very much. I think there's something which we didn't mention, but we should maybe discuss after the next talk, which is that the same processes do appear in science, but at the same time, I have the feeling, as somebody who's far out multidisciplinary, that actually the sort of like the more nepotistic the whole thing is, the more conventional the whole thing is. So we have these like very long traditions of like, the PhD student of the PhD student of the PhD student of the PhD student asking the same question as somebody in 1900. While if you want to do something truly new, that's easier when you push out of the system and you change country while doing complexity science or something like that. So that would be interesting to see systematically, because in science, it's very hard to sway away from your department, for example, right? Next speaker is Thanos Efthymiou. is a long title of the talk, Being Ranked in the Material World. That's exactly what we're all of us are. So we're very curious.
I think you have to use them.
Can I use you just speak freely where you just speak, just place it. Yeah.
When I tried it, maybe you can get it.
What? Oh no. You see the if you go to the
Here, I can.
no, let's yes, and now click on the next one. Yes, exactly. That's great. Okay.
We can also do that. I don't know which one.
It doesn't matter because, like, yeah, in the final video, you will appear at the corner of the room. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so now let's get I don't know what's going on. Okay.
Do you want to sit here?
No, it's okay. Okay, thanks for having me. My name is Efthymiou, very curious. And let's brief introduction about myself. I'm finishing my PhD in AI cultural industries with a focus on machine learning for fine art analysis. And I'm going to present today our accepted paper in organization studies, recently accepted, called Being Ranked in the Material World, the Visual Originality of an Artwork and its Effects on the Artist's Canonization. It's a big one. So let's start. Originality is widely regarded as essential for an artist's canonization. The inclusion of the artist in the historical art canon. The main puzzle is how does visual originality measured at the pixel level before any institutional sense-making affects long-term recognition. And in order to answer this kind of question, we analyzed 60,000 paintings across 600 years using deep learning to measure visual originality. And we link this to canonization across different regimes based on the selection systems framework. And the insight is that material features, the images of the artworks, actually matter. They actually matter for the cultural value. And yeah, without even any interpretive framework being applied. So our research question in this work is, to what extent does this visual originality of an artist at the time of creation of their artworks affect their long-term evaluations and canonical study? As I said before, we just use the images of the artworks and we measure visual originality solely looking at the pixel level. I do like the 60,000 paintings, so I'm over repeating it. So yeah, we did this kind of analysis for 942 artists, including 20 stylistic movements in the finals. And we examine this material level originality, visual originality, and how it relates to canonization across these different evaluative regimes over the long term. Our contributions are the following. We first provide a definition and operationalization of visual originality as the big novelty in an artist's career, measured computationally at the pixel level. We study visual originality to long-term art historical recognition across 600 years. We provide a new measure of visual influence amongst peers by looking at the essentiality on a similarity graph, independent of any co-exhibition networks or things that are apparent in prior work. And we are using systematic evaluation across expert, peer, and market selection systems to identify the effect of visual originality.
And finally, we provide a multimodal approach by combining computer vision and text analysis at a large scale for this kind of studies. So just to begin with prior work, most of the prior work on artistic success has focused on social, institutional factors like looking at networks, gatekeepers, institutional recognition, or by looking at distinctiveness, how art is different from contemporaries, typically having a short-term impact. We are departing from that as we're looking at our focus is on visual originality before any institutional sense-making. We are departing from prior studies on distinctiveness. We use originality as a temporally anchored measure of novelty, comparing things with the most similar predecessors, even from very distant past. And we're looking at the long term instead of not short term that was previously with the focus of related work. And we measure maximum visual originality, we define maximum originality in a career on a specific point in time, not like subset of periods within an artist's career. So, as I said, we look at visual originality as a peak creative output, unlike prior work measuring difference from contemporaries. We do measure novelty from most similar predecessors of an artwork and an artist. We identify the peak creative output at a specific career moment, and we identify this as the maximum originality point, which is simply the year when an artist's work shows the highest novelty compared to all prior artworks. And again, we're looking solely at the pixel level of the digital representations of the artworks, nothing else. We're using the selection system framework to evaluate this impact of visual originality. The selection system framework consists of the expert selection, which is third-party specialists like critics, curators, art historians, so not producers or the consumers. The peer selection system, which is producers evaluating other producers, and the market selection, which is then consumers, collectors, general public. And the question is, how does visual originality affect all these three systems? We have three hypotheses. The first one is visual originality compared to all prior artworks positively affects long-term evaluations in expert, peer, and market selection systems. The second one is we're looking into the specific stylistic movement, so the visual originality compared to prior works within the same stylistic movement positively affects long-term evaluations in all these selection systems. And the third hypothesis is timing within movements, and is the earlier the stage of the stylistic movement when an artist reaches maximum visual originality, the better the long-term evaluations across all selection systems. So, yeah, we're using this data, so 60,000 paintings spanning 600 years from this 15th century to 21st century. We're looking at 942 artists and 20 stylistic movements. We're using a fine-tuned resonant 152 architecture for track prediction, and we extract visual representations at pixel level for each of these 60,000 paintings. Yeah.
Do you analyze this at the level of the artist or of the paintings?
Both.
The big difference.
So we get, okay, I'm gonna go.
Yeah.
So we get this pairwise cosine distances between the paintings' representation. So what we do is we have a network, it's pretty simple. We have a painting, and then we get this kind of representation that is actually in order to predict some tags associated with the painting. And then what we do is we compute the cosine distance between all paintings feature vectors. We link each painting to its most visually similar predecessor, looking backward in time, excluding artworks from the same artist, so we don't have self-influence. And we identify the year when an artist produced the most visually distant work from more prior art. And this peak distance is our visual originality measure. So, an example. We have this graph, assume this small graph here. We have Pablo Picasso, some other works, and we link this painting to the most similar predecessor. So it's this one. And then we have this distance, right? So let's isolate Picasso. So assume that we have 3 years with only 2 paintings for Picasso. We have the distances to the most similar things happened ever before. And we identify the year in which the artist Pablo Picasso reached the maximum visual originality. So we're measuring the distance at an artwork level to actually measure the artist that created these artworks, visual originality. And yeah, and identify the time, the point in time that the artist reached the visual originality, and then we represent this for the artist to see the visual originality and expect to the artist's canonization. We collected different sources for the different evaluative regimes. For the expert selection system, we looked at almost 1,000 ebooks, art reviews from New York Times. We use Wikipedia, we use Google Ngram, we use ArtRAG. For pre-selection system, we constructed another metric of degrees, looking at the degree centrality of incoming visual similarity links. So how many ongoing links you have for a painting based on an artist. And for market selection system, we use, again, Wikipedia, Google, and ArtRAG with auction sales data from 2006 to 2021. Yeah, so this is actually a pipeline. So we will have text, we analyze text, get a ranking of artists, and then we have this kind of art representation. Those are paintings, and then you have this the number, the cosine distance of an artwork based on time, and then you identify the point in time where the artist reaches the maximum visual originality. So before I go to results, again, our dependent variables are the expert, peer, and market selection systems. We're looking at the visual originality without constraining to anything, so overall prior artworks, and looking only at the nominal style of an artist, so measuring things only within the stylistic movement of an artwork. And we have other kinds of control variables like career stage, so the point in time that the artist reaches their visual originality within their career or within the stylistic movement that they are mostly associated with. The gender, active years of an artist, of the artist, number of styles, and number of paintings that they create. And yeah, so we can see that visual originality actually significantly affects, for instance, here, the selection system. We can also see that the earlier an artist picks within a style, within the stylistic movement, the better for the canonization. And we can also see that the number of paintings is something that has a significant effect also. So more paintings someone created, of course, more likely to be higher in this canonization. For the pre-selection system, again, we can see that there is a significant effect, but visual originality within the dominant style has no significant effect for the pre-selection system. Again, the style stage positively affects the variation, and the same holds for market selection system. Again, visual originality has a significant effect on the market selection system. And the size stays again, the earlier, the better. So just summarize for our three hypotheses. For H1, we see that it holds for expert peer market. Hypothesis 2 doesn't hold for peer, and hypothesis 3 holds for all the three selection systems. So the key finding is that visual originality, as defined here, robustly affects canonization across all systems. Peers tend to reward overall originality, but not within the stylistic movements. This suggests that peers might value conformity with the stylistic norm, and early innovators in movements gain lasting advantage. So to sum up, we measure visual originality at the pixel level before any legitimation, and we saw that it significantly affects long-term canonization, extending prior work. We saw that selection systems have different evaluative logics. Expert on market reward both over originality and with it movement, but for peers it doesn't hold. We saw that early innovators gain enduring advantages with support and sense prior work. And we saw also that despite the different logic, selection system actually align over time against support. There are several limitations of this work. One of them is that the data set that we use represents Western male artists, which obviously limits the generalization to non-canonical art. So most of the artists in this collection are actually canonized and pretty famous artists. We find monotonic relationships. Prior work so inverted, U-shaped curves for immediate success. Future work should examine the Deborah dynamics of the originality value. We're missing mechanisms, so we demonstrate pixel level originality, but we do not capture any intermediate social processes, which is actually also kind of useful to look into. And our method can be extended to other domains with visuals, sonic or textual kind of representation, like music design, literature, and future application can actually test the robustness of this framework. And that's for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So you get another 10 minutes. I should probably start asking a question. So my PhD is in art history, and the final exam of the undergrad phase in Munich, you have to sort of like be able to recognize any artwork if they put a postcard in front of you. And in order to learn for that, you meet up as a group of students, and you sort of like lend all the slides that are there in the public library, which is 20,000 slides. And then you stare at all of them, 3 seconds each, and whatever, discuss them. And here we're talking about 60K paintings from WikiArt. So WikiArt is like Wikipedia. And the 60,000 is 60,000 of 150,000, if I'm not wrong, which are the 60,000 with a year, and not those that say second quarter of the 16th century, which obviously gives you a hard time to date. So that's question number one. Like, what would you do? Like, how does your method hold up to that thing that your data set, the original data set, is, sort of like 3 times as large? And then obviously there will be paintings that will be fudging with your cosine distance. And that's even worse. And I mentioned it's not a critique on use. Like, there's a whole stream of papers. I've done papers like this too, right? So the key thing is, like, we work with these corpora, which are actually very small. And then, so let me throw another number into the room, which I think is interesting to discuss. the former CTO of the Dallas Museum of Art, Rob Stein, who's not the CTO anymore, because he worked for Max Anderson, who is not at the DMA anymore. I think that's the best way to put it. So Rob Stein gave an estimate of about 40 million artworks in public collections being online on the web. That's a very different number from 60,000. The 60,000 to 40 million is 1.5 per million. And so then the question is, how would that look like? Because we have this thing, like, what are we actually talking about? Like in my world, we will typically be sort of attacked by saying, that's not art history you're talking about. You're talking about textbook, like digital images, which are reprographs or digitized reprographs from literature, which is now old, which is actually true. But typically, it's the old literature, shitty photographs. But now it's interesting, you add a layer, which is like, you talk about the market, and you talk about people who are peers, which that's a very difficult thing to say about Titian and Cezanne in 2025. So the question is, and I think that is the important part, your message is very interesting and seems to hold. But the question is, can we actually make sense of it by scaling it to corpora? For example, Wikipedia as a whole, with the shitty dates and so on, to actually make sense if this actually holds. And that is like layer one. The other, like, computer scientists may complain about Resident 50 not being a Mills model or cosine distance not being JSD or whatever. So that we're wrestling an octopus on multiple fronts. How would you tackle such critique? Which,
okay, first of all, we're looking at 60,000 paintings, but actually we're looking at the 942 artists. So this is not about, but it's more about the number of artists in our collection. And prior work was scaled up to 100 artists. So 900 out of 100 is actually, we think, an advancement on this kind of work.
But you see that if you, like, so George Kubler in 1962 made this, he had a letter exchange with Oystein Orr, who was a graph theoretician, and he asked him, does it make sense to work in sort of like sequences of similarity, basically like a matrix, in another word? And Oystein Orr said, like, actually, we have to think about a directed network of problems and solution, which is influence. And then Kubler said, you cannot do influence. It just doesn't work because you don't have all the objects. And Wikipedia has influence in their Freebase, which was the base of Wikidata, and the Google Knowledge Graph has an influence field. Everybody who does this in computer science talks about influence all the time. Well, art historians have written, they do 30-page excursions in books where they say you cannot use influence. Because, like, how is Michelangelo guilty of Rodin doing unfinished sculpture? We find Michelangelo's unfinished sculpture are artworks because Rodin did an unfinished artwork, and then we all of a sudden realized, oh, these unfinished slaves are actually cool in art. So the key question, and I'm making devil's advocate. So is that something which, like, how do we deal with this? Like, because in the end, like, as you walk out in the business school, we walk out to clients, and it's like, can you predict if this artwork is cool at the Miami Art Basel? Should I buy this? Like, what's the visual influence factor here, for example?
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. But I think we. Sorry, no. Sorry. I think we could scale it up. And also, what happens here is that we're looking always at the most similar thing happening at only one most similar. So we do not, actually, we are not kind of handle this kind of how many paintings we have, right? Because we're looking always at one. It might be very distant for everything, but you mean very, very similar to something happened before. That's So we actually try to work around this kind of bias based on the on the selection of on the collection, sorry, for the painting. Yeah, and also regarding influence, I think it's of course, we do not actually 100% accurately represent that, but it's pretty, we think at least, it's a pretty nice way to look at the influence. Are the visual vectors of artworks based on unbiased deep learning architecture. So this is actually
Is it unbiased or
it's unbiased, yeah. It is an unbiased kind of network. Biased based on the perception that we as humans have for art. I mean, Resident has no idea about art. Just compare visual appearance. How the things look, if they look similar or not. And that's actually what we use here. So that's why I stress that we are doing at pixel level. So it's actually looking at pixels and saying how they differ or not.
I think it's a good sort of like end of season in a sense. There's two things which I like to sort of like put on the table for everybody. We're not going to solve it in this session. Like one is, if you look at biology, how they solve protein interaction, the first thing they did is a 5% proteome. Now imagine you had like a classic example is imagine you have only 5% of the street grid of Manhattan. Does that look like an orthogonal grid? Probably not. It's probably disconnected. There's a lot of snakes, and then maybe you will get some quadrangular closure, you may say. Then they did another Nature paper. That was a Nature paper. And another Nature paper of the 25% proteome. Took another couple of years, and they did 50%, and then the 85. But nobody knows if at 95 you add one node and the complete topology changes completely. And that may also happen here. So I think this is a very cool method. And we need to sort of like do this systematic corpus scale analysis in iterations. And that will probably be something where your lab, our lab, or in my case, the labs that are spin-off and the labs that I will do in the future, maybe. So these kind of things, like we will actually work on that way. But I think it's a multi-fronted way. And I personally disagree that the resonant is unbiased. Actually, in fact, in the paper, we asked that question. Can we measure how much is a neural network style aesthetics based and how much is it actually semantic sort of like metadata based? And it turns out most of these neural networks, and that's the whole point about Resonant 50, it actually knows a portrait is a portrait. It does not just say, oh, there's a sort of blob with another blob on top that is the head and shoulders, but it says portrait internally. So it actually mixes the semantic dimension and the aesthetic dimension. And as such, it is totally not unbiased, but it's super primed with, in this particular case, if you use ImageNet, with ImageNet, which is a data set which was a crawl of all images from the World Wide Web through the lens of the computer of Fei Li, who's a 25, 30-year-old Asian woman. And there is 45-year-old men in there. And there's a whole lot of other people that are missing because it's not all of the web. And I think that is a sort of like really interesting thing that we have these sort of three-lobe problem. That on the one hand, we have the corpus that has biases. We have the machine learning models, which have biases, and we have our theory that has biases. And we have to bring this all together. And that is a really, really important point because if you go to production, and production can mean you board an airplane with somebody who wants to buy art at Art Basel. You're recommending them spending 300 million on something. You better have a good idea about is that really original or not, right? And I think that is sort of something which I find quite cool. So don't take this as a devastating critique, but it's an interesting thing. This is the state of the art where we are with these quantitative art papers. There's many, many wiki art papers in Europe, like hundreds. And in conferences, there is less so in art history and maybe in environments like this, but the innovation will come from outside. Like we will have to ask the question, okay, can we do cosine similarity? Can we use ResNet? Can we use ImageNet? Can we use 60,000 paintings and actually say something about art history? Because actually what we're saying is we say something about an art collection which is not art history, but is the representation of art history coming out of the heads of a bunch of old men writing the story of art in different ways. And that is a very different sort of beast that we're talking about. So in some sense, this is sort of like cultural data analytics is a point where we say we should not be shut down by all these kind of critique, but we show something that, you've shown this measure makes sense. It's cool. We just need a better data set. We need better methods, better data sets, and do more of this because we have shown that we can actually see certain things which 20 years ago somebody could say, but why should we believe Ernst Gombrich because he's 93 years old, for example.
Yeah.
All right.
There's a chat.
Yes. Just to check this. Two people had to leave. Okay. Thank you very much. Yes, we also have to leave, actually. We hit the 2-hour mark. This was a great pleasure. This was oh my God, I have to count. No, I don't count. This was the 2025 fall season after 2020. So it's the 11th season of Cultural Data Analytics Open Lab Seminar. We will return in spring, as usual, with the semester. It starts in February. And we hope you have good holidays. For those who are watching online, there will be 1 or 2 more emails where we tell you a little bit about the state of cultural data analytics. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.